Welcome to the Video Insiders podcast. I'm Carlos Pacheco.
And I'm Tom Martin.
And we are two hard-boiled YouTube channel managers, YouTube channel experts that have been uploading and managing YouTubes for quite some time. Networks, creators, you name it. We've been managing these channels for almost 10 years each at this point. So we are here to bring you the inside scoop of what's happening behind the scenes, what we're dealing with, and our perspective of what's going on YouTube. Tom, how's it going?
It is just about going. The wheels are just about still on. I've had the kids at home in self-isolation for the last 3 weeks. You know, they've got another week of school or so until the Christmas holidays. So I'm, touch wood, going to have a bit of peace and quiet for this run up into Christmas, where I am extremely busy. There's no holiday vibe around the office, in air quotes at least, despite the fact that we have our lights up and our trees up and Christmas radio running pretty much 24/7 in the Martin household. I'm going to ask you what's going on with you, Carlos. But before we do that, very, very importantly, for the last time this year, and for the first time in a while, actually, can you please give us a Toronto weather report?
It's a little bit cold and wet. You got a little bit of dumping of snow this week. So, the dogs had to have little underpaws, little rubber paws. We had like an awesome fall, and then it just turned, to crap pretty quickly. But, we're in the city, so there's not a lot of snow. Outside of the city, there's definitely snow. So that's our life. Speaking
of which, this is your last Christmas in the city, right? We've got a big move coming very, very soon.
Yes, actually, as we speak, I'm starting to get surrounded by boxes. We are officially moving. By the time this podcast is released, we will have been moved. And yes, moving to the country where internet speeds are way slower, where things are hopefully going to be a little bit more, just a little bit calmer in terms of lifestyle. So definitely looking forward to that. It's been nerve-wracking, in the whole transitions very quickly, but definitely happy we're doing it. So yeah, that's my world. Obviously, just as you, sort of like busy with client work. Looking forward to some quiet time during the holidays. It's going to be interesting because Canada's still we're in full-blown second wave. Unlike you, our vaccine the country isn't fully cured already. Our officials are officially canceling, Christmas gatherings. So it's like, oh man, it's going to be really interesting to see, it's just going to be a weird sort of Christmas. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and what a year it has been. And that is going to be the subject of this week's episode. This is our traditional now annual, third annual yearly wrap-up / predictions for next year. But before that, Carlos is going to tell you about our incredible sponsor.
Yes, TubeBuddy has been our founding sponsor. TubeBuddy is the ultimate tool for creators to streamline their daily workflow on YouTube, allowing for more time to create great content. It's also great for brands to help reduce busy work and focus on what matters, growing your channel. It's also great for multi-channel networks. It's an incentive for partners that you have in your network, and which will help them grow their channel faster. Tom, do we have a special offer?
Oh, yes, we do. We have an exclusive multi-channel license discount, and you can get that only by visiting videoinsiders.fm/TubeBuddy. Thank you, TubeBuddy.
Thank you, TubeBuddy. So,
what a year. What a year. And I don't think there are going to be many people that are going to be too sad to see the back of 2020. I was trying to think of all of the different kind of YouTube stories and big developments, and there's not much. It all pales in comparison to the one big story, the one big C word that has, just written off the whole year for a lot of people and caused not only death, but declines in business. And YouTube is not immune to that. So yeah, we'll come to COVID and the COVID effect. But are there any other major stories and developments that happened this year that you can think of, Carlos, that really stand out?
Like big story wise, it just feels like, at the beginning of the year, there was a little bit more of that whole, we need to clean up YouTube. We need to, get rid of there was sort of like, felt like, the deplatforming of certain individuals on a platform. But at the end of the day, that's nothing new. And yeah, it just doesn't feel like there was anything, it's to be honest, it's sort of like a little bit of a boring year. It feels like the focus is on an other platform this year for some reason.
Yeah. So TikTok kind of really came to the fore in the Western world this year. And did the acquisition ever get through? Is that finalized? Is that
nope? Literally as we speak, it's been delayed or whatever. It happened again last night. I mean, we're not going to get into the reasoning of that, but at the end of the day, it just feels like it's going to be like swept under the rug for the next until somebody else takes over.
Yes. So I think generally this year there was, January, I think it was January the 6th, came the big changes on YouTube for kids content. And we'll talk about that in just a sec. But that was the only kind of huge overhaul that we've seen this year. Very recently, we've seen the announcement they're going to start to monetize channels that are not inside of the partner program. Again, we'll talk about that in a bit. But those are the kind of two big developments on the platform this year. I'd say the rest of it was pretty much, the story was COVID came, COVID increased viewership, and COVID decimated CPMs, which are already quite bad. And I think that has generally been the story of the year. People are at home watching more content, more people starting YouTube channels, growing YouTube channels, working to grow their YouTube channel to grow their business because other arms of their business are struggling. And so usage went up, viewership went up, content publishing went up, and CPMs went down.
Really? That's what you're seeing?
Well, that's definitely what happened, right? At the start.
At the start, yes. Okay.
So that was that's the biggest story of the year, right? Was that absolutely, people were reporting minimums of 30% down in terms of year-on-year revenues from the same level of viewership.
Well, one of the things that I want to sort of bring forward is also there was a big algorithm change that wasn't sort of like big news, but to me it was a pure a change that I saw major networks get hit with. This was around May, and we spoke about it. I almost want to call it the big fluffy reason that YouTube gave was sort of like the quality satisfaction, sort of like
quality watch time,
right? Quality watch time, right? And what I saw is, and to this day has not recuperated, is impressions have almost been completely halved or wiped out, and views are way down for a lot of channels. Yes, we did get a little bit of a COVID bump, but then once that, and this is May is we're deep into COVID, things started to drop around June. That's, to me, and it hasn't, it's been sort of steady. And again, I speak from a looking at big channels, big networks. Obviously, if you're a small creator and you're growing, you're not going to see this. But for me, as a trending thing, I've seen this across the board where views are sort of okay, but way down versus this time last year. But money wise, and again, I'm talking more end of Q3, Q4 now. Money wise is completely the opposite. It's like 3 to 4 times more money versus 2019. So it's not necessarily news, but it's sort of like an interesting sort of shift trend that seems to be encouraged or seems to have is happening because of a bunch of things. First off, stuff we've talked about before, YouTube's cleanup of the space in terms of channels, as well as the COVID effect of many businesses being forced to do a digital, quote unquote, digital transformation, right? We all know businesses that should have been way more digital and weren't. But all of a sudden, when their retail shops are completely decimated, they have to be digital. That means they need to spend more money on a website. That means they need to spend more money on digital advertising. And I think that's going to be an interesting shift over the next, it's been over the last 6 months, and it will be interesting for the next year.
Yeah, I don't doubt the existence of this change, but I think the reason it hasn't been news is because it hasn't affected everyone, and also because it's less quantifiable.
Yeah.
You can't really sell a video to say, I'm going to show you how to increase your quality, because it's more ephemeral. It's like, it's more of a soft thing, than a black or white thing. And also you can't really track it. There's no quality watch time metric in analytics. There's no data that tells us people like our stuff or don't, apart from the traditional of, watch percentage and view duration. So it's harder for you to know whether you're been dinged by this or not. And then, so therefore it's also less attractive for people to talk about, the voices in our space are less likely to speak about it because, it doesn't put bums on seats. It doesn't get eyeballs on videos like YouTube algorithm hacks 2021 does. Do you know what I mean? So I think people are talking about it less. So it is down for the bastions of true justice in the YouTube world. And we did do a podcast on this, and check that out in your podcast feed, and we'll link to it in the show notes of this episode too.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a perception. It's like, it feels like, okay, how do I say this? In my calls with the clients, I'm looking at the metrics on a month-to-month basis. I keep getting the questions like, what do the number of comments mean? What do the number of likes mean? What do this means, right? What do the engagement metrics mean? And I was like, I mean, at this point, it's like this more engagement mean more views, more money. And I was like, I think this whole quality watch time, all that sort of stuff has become way more of a mushy, fluffy subject matter. And it's like, you can't specifically say just because you get more comments, you're going to get more subscribers. You can't specifically say just because you get more likes, you're going to get more subscribers. I think as YouTube is sort of like creating, has shifted the system to be a little bit more opaque, meaning hard to sort of like, really get, there's parts of it that you're able to control, but they seem to be turning themselves a little bit more into like a harder, again, the thing they're trying to do is like, they're trying to prevent people from gaming the system. Right. And I feel like they're sort of succeeding on that. And yes, there are certain people that are able to create the content that gets a lot of attention. And here's the thing though, that's not easily duplicated, right? And there's only one Mr. Beast. If you try to be Mr. Beast, you'll get success, but it's like, it's not going to be about the thumbnails. It's not going to be about it's not just going to be about the thumbnails. It's going to be about the whole package, right? And again, I don't know if I'm making sense in what I'm saying, but it just feels like that they're sort of making things a little bit harder to sort of like, drill down into the data. Specifically, one of the points is sort of like, they're eliminating Google Analytics integration. I was like, to me, that's a signal that they want to close that up so that you can't see much data outside of what's in your YouTube analytics, unless you spend money and buy yourself, sort of like a deeper analytics tool.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of a wider trend, which is, probably the last point we'll make before we start looking at what we predicted last year, is that they're stripping away more and more and more. So as I'd say the transition from studio beta, being a beta, to now being, well, obviously it's enforced across YouTube. There is no traditional Creator Studio, but also all of the features that have pretty now migrated. I'm not sure there's anything that still sits in the old UI. If there is, it's minimal. As that's moved across, a lot of tiny little features have gone away and continue to go away on a daily basis. Little things like click-through rates for subscribe watermarks has disappeared. The other day I went to block a video in a new territory and realized that the ability to control territories from the channel level is now gone after the point of upload, which never used to be the case. So a lot more responsibilities going back up into the CMS level, stuff like that. And I think they're just stripping away more and more and more to get people back down to the essential, to make sure that people that can make powerful moves are either in charge of a CMS and stuff like that. And just generally cleaning up shop. Some of the decisions I find questionable as to features they're removing, but it's their playground, it's their sandbox, and they can do what they want with their toys. So I think that's probably something we're going to continue to see into next year, is that kind of those features that are kind of around the edge that probably only super nerds like you and I are using, Carlos, will continue to disappear.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about our predictions quickly from last year and whether they came to fruit or not. I think we're going to start with one of yours, Carlos, because I think when we re-listened to this episode, I think this probably both kind of hit us over the head. And I was thinking about it, and then you messaged me and like, oh yeah, I think I got that one wrong. And that one was that TikTok was going to fizzle out. Which made me chuckle when I heard you say it. But to be fair, you did caveat by saying that they are going to fizzle out unless they make certain changes, which I think they have. They do now have a kind of monetization program. They have a creator kind of fund. I think monetization will increase on the platform this year. We've seen more brands go onto TikTok. We've seen other verticals start to do well on TikTok apart from just dancing, pre-teens doing these strange dance routines. And so, yeah, I think it's safe to say that TikTok did not fizzle this year.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting about that, and I'll cop to it, but as interesting is that, they embrace the creator side of things and, and did a lot of work to build that monetization ecosystem fairly quickly compared to other companies who are still to this day dragging their feet, but have been around for like years. And I think that's probably one of the key elements as well. Not, obviously, reach counts for something. If you're getting 100 million views a month, you'll make money no matter what. But, having that ecosystem, that support ecosystem really, encourages creators. We saw all the stories from Vine in the day where the creators literally asked Vine, it's like, pay up or we leave. And guess what happened? They all left. So that's, I think that's where they really won.
Yeah, and I think as well, one of the points we spoke about last year was the insane amount of paid media they'd done to try and, penetrate the market and get installs of the app. And I think they're way past that now, That's obviously money very, very well spent because they don't need to advertise anymore. TikTok is just now part of everyday life, I'd say. Yep. For a lot, especially for young people.
And everybody's trying to be TikTok, right?
Yeah.
You see YouTube trying to do its TikTok. You see, Instagram trying to be its TikTok. And even Snapchat even is trying to be TikTok in certain ways. They've sort of like released a different way of sharing that mimics TikTok a little bit more. So yeah, it's definitely, I definitely messed up on that predictions, but
But I think it was either going to do really well or it was going to die. So I don't think I would have disagreed with you at the time that was a good call. So as we mentioned earlier, it looks like it's going to be taken over by a US company. probably just to get around, the politics of it all. Whether it will continue to grow at the same rate or flatline a bit, or I've heard recently they're going to start to introduce 3-minute videos. Is that gonna be the platform that finally?
You're getting ahead of it. You're getting ahead of it. That's predictions.
All right. Sorry. Right. I retract that last struck from the record.
So let's go one of yours. You said that kids content would die on a platform, and I don't think that exactly happened.
No,
right?
I don't. I think it definitely hasn't, because it continues to get insane amounts of views. What has happened is probably a lot of the bottom of the market has fallen out. Mm-hmm. And kind of like my prediction said, the big media companies that have cartoons and, proper media assets have done well. I think monetization has still gone through the floor. That's without a doubt. I think we've seen people losing up to 70% and above of year-on-year revenue. But viewership has been insane, especially during lockdown. It's been ridiculously insane. And one thing that I didn't really grasp is that if you're one of these super kids creators, AdSense is probably the least of your worries, because you've got the toy companies paying you to play with their toys and stuff, which is probably where the lion's share of their money actually comes from. And if they've still got audiences and their audiences are growing, then that ecosystem lives on. Whether I think that's right or wrong, I think it's wrong, is a different conversation to be had. But that ecosystem, at least at the top end, is thriving still, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, from exchanges I've had with creators, producers in this space, they still see YouTube as a huge marketing opportunity. It's still a part of their strategies to build a YouTube channel so that when the property hits other streaming platforms or broadcast platforms, there's awareness of the brand and all that marketing jazz, right? So less about the monetization, more about the brand awareness.
I think one thing that has surprised me is the lack of work that seems to have gone into or not gone into YouTube Kids. This was the year that YouTube Kids had to, pardon the non-intentional pun, come of age. It had to mature. It had to find a way to better monetize. It had to find a way to get more penetration, more installs. But I don't think it's done any of that. And I can't say I've looked into it in a huge amount, but I think there's more clamoring to get onto other platforms rather than for creators to really worry too much about YouTube Kids as a standalone platform.
At the end of the day, for me, what this sort of signals is that to this day, Google cannot create a product that people will pay for, in the streaming side of things. I mean, not that I'm saying that they never will, but it's the goal here is sort of they're an advertising company, and advertising to kids is not a type of not a business where you want robots to be in charge. You need people to sort of really vet the content as well as the advertising, and it's much more bespoke. There's just so much more regulation. Yeah, I think because it's so hard, it's not as easy for them that they're like, oh, well, we're not making any money from this, and they don't see the long-term value of it, which to me sometimes feels a little short-sighted. If you grow up watching YouTube, you'll keep watching YouTube after that. So yeah, you're right. They haven't really sort of pushed it further. It feels like it's sort of like this thing that they're not paying attention to. No, you had let's go straight to the other one you said is you said that YouTube would start monetizing edgier content, sort of because you think of somebody who uploads, for example, you upload movies with action and potential, things that could be demonetized.
Yeah.
that's an opportunity for brands. And most of the time, your video gets demonetized. We were sort of hoping, you were hoping or predicting that there would be a different sort of like tier to allow for monetization of content like that.
Yeah, and I think this morning when I was thinking about recording this, I was going to put this down as a fail and I'll roll it over to next year, because I don't think wholesale they have done that yet. We have seen that they are now monetizing videos outside of the partner program, which will probably lead to this maybe by accident. But then I got an email today that one of my videos had been reviewed and approved for ads, and I nearly fell off my chair because I uploaded it knowing full well that it had zero chance of being deemed as advertiser friendly, and it did. So whoever reviewed that, thank you very much. So yeah, I do think they have maybe moved it a little bit, but not to the extent that I thought it was going to. So I do kind of want to roll this over because, one of my clients is a gaming client. And when I say gaming, I don't mean PlayStation. I mean as in gambling. And, if not so much from a YouTube point of view, but from their business point of view, if I own a service which is only available to those people over 18, or if you look at an alcohol company, you only want to advertise to people over 21 in the US. Why would you not want to have a giant set of ad inventory that is going to be targeted well to people over 21? And one of the best ways to do that is by saying, okay, let's find some content that is, you wouldn't be able to see in the cinema unless you were 18 or something like that. So I can't understand why it's not. I understand why it would not be deemed suitable for all advertisers. But usually when you get that yellow dollar, it means you're not going to make a cent, do you know?
Yeah.
So I do think there's a long way to go in them getting that right and saying, yes, this is not appropriate for all audiences. But, I've got movies with Hollywood stars in, and, I don't know why a company would not want to advertise around that, especially if they were a company that marketed to people that were over 18 or 21. So I think there is moves towards it, but I don't think I hit this one directly on the head. What do you say from your point of view, Carlos?
I think you got to think about. I think you're right, but when you think about movies in general, usually when you want to watch a movie, you have to buy it, or you have to watch it on a premium service, like, think of HBO type of premium service. And then it sort of goes down the chain where it then comes to broadcast, right? You think of the lifespan of a movie. And by the time it hits broadcast, it sometimes is heavily edited, right? So you remove the swear words, you remove the sex scenes, nudity. So I think that's where things get a little bit sort of like touchy with the YouTube side of things, right? I'm not saying there's no opportunity here for brands. Of course, there's an opportunity, but I think it goes to that old TV thinking of like brands want to be around safe content that's not around that's not risque. So that's where YouTube's sort of like making things a little bit harder for distributors or not broadcasters, but distributors like yourself who are putting content out there that hasn't been edited for a sort of wider audience. And I agree. I think it's going to be a slow roll, but it'll happen with time.
Yeah, and I think now more than ever it has to happen because YouTube have got revenue to claw back that they missed out during COVID for sure. So that's why they are monetizing videos outside of the partner program, and that's why they're introducing new formats like audio ads and stuff like that, because even though they're still probably making a ridiculously billions worth of ad rev, it's probably way below forecast, and there are people whose jobs it is to make sure they hit that forecast and make up for the drop in the gap between the forecasts. So hopefully for more creators like me that are posting kind of more mature content, there will be better revenue streams coming in the future.
Yeah. So my other prediction was that big media companies to further overtake YouTubers. I think that's pretty much sure.
Yeah.
We're still seeing YouTubers take a lot of space. When you look at YouTube these days, networks, media companies have upped their game in their production and the amount of output they have on a platform in an effort to diversify, right? They were building these videos on their websites using a hosting service, and now they're like, okay, well, why not put on YouTube and benefit from the monetization there? Maybe there was more of an uptick in 2020 because of, I think, COVID being what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's not something we predicted, but it definitely sped it up.
Yeah, I think, there's all of these companies sitting on these rights and they're like, okay, our budget there's a big gap in the budget. Let's quickly get all of this stuff up on YouTube. Let's get it up on Amazon Prime, XYZ platform, and let's try and claw back our gap in what we thought we would sell or recover costs of, all of our events being cancelled or the productions that we've invested in being delayed by a year, stuff like that. So again, people trying to claw back, gaps in the budget definitely would have heightened that.
And your last prediction was that Instagram videos would start being monetized and creators would start making money. How's that happened?
Not really. I know there's been some kind of like shopping ads kind of introduced, shop direct from video and stuff like that, but definitely not in the way that I predicted, which was, traditional pre-roll advertising. This has been rumored for so many years now, since back when I was in the corporate world, and it's like, it's definitely going to happen this year. It's definitely going to, it's like, again, I'd probably roll this one over again into next year. It's got to happen at some point. Facebook's doing it and have done it for a few years now. So I don't really see why Insta would be any different. Whether Instagram TV will be around, IGTV will be around this time next year or not, let's leave that for the predictions for next year. Maybe. But either way, it's always been a matter of time. I can't believe it's taken this long. But I'd be surprised if this wasn't a thing by this time next year. But I said that last year and probably the year before as well.
It's going to be interesting. As of yesterday, the FTC just, sued Facebook, right? So an effort to split up Facebook from Instagram to WhatsApp. So I think Facebook's going to be focused on other things over the next little while.
Was that in conjunction with the Attorney General's office, or is that a separate court case?
No, it's in conjunction with the Attorney's office.
Okay, yeah. They've got both of those. If they've got both of those coming at them at the same time, they're even deeper.
Yep.
Dogs do, yeah.
Well, I mean, they're deeper. I mean, their argument's pretty sound, but at the end of the day, like, they've just fallen off in terms of like goodwill because of also the way they handled 2020 in terms of everything they let go through on the platform, right? And people they're going to pay for it. That's essentially what's going to happen. So when I get there.
The days of whoever it is saying we're just a platform is way gone. No.
Yeah.
That's never going to wash ever again.
You did 3, I did 2. Essentially, you got, 1.5 right, I would say.
Well, you had a couple of other kind of smaller ones. You said there'd be no major acquisitions, which is kind of right. TikTok hasn't been bought yet, so I'd say you got one for that. And you also said that YouTube drama channels would be the kind of next niche to be demonetized. I couldn't speak either way whether or not that has happened or not, but
there's been some cases of the political and the one. I mean, anybody that's spreading false news or creating sort of like that type of environment has been demonetized, a few here and there, but nothing. There's nothing widespread at the end of the day. Okay, let's straight get up into what we think will happen in 2021.
Well, I'm gonna cover off a couple of mine very quickly because we've already touched on them already. So I'm gonna roll over my monetization of edgy content and say that's gonna increase, but we won't spend any time talking about that because we've already done so. And then I'd already thought about the kind of monopoly Google and Facebook kind of thing before, and then I saw yesterday that the Attorney General I think it was the Attorney General of like New York was coming out and saying, I'm teaming up with like 48 other attorney generals and we're coming after Facebook. So, but mine was more thinking about Google and YouTube being separated as entities. I'm not sure it will happen this year, but I think the process will start this year and eventually they will be decoupled and split into, I know they're technically separate companies, but, so the start of the process of YouTube being part of Alphabet, whatever it's called nowadays, and having to stand on its own 2 feet.
I see it. I think it's going to be a very sort of like, as you said, a slow process. It's not going to happen very quickly. It might not even happen in 2021, but there's definitely this feeling of like, we're sort of tired of these companies taking so much of the bandwidth of the web and controlling so much of it. So yeah, as many analysts in the industry say, it's like when you force these companies to split up, they each become sort of like competitors to each other, and they actually end up doing better.
Which is why these laws are in place, and anti-monopoly laws and pro-competition laws to help the market and help consumers and stuff like that. So
exactly,
it's got to be a good thing in the long term. So my first prediction is that YouTube will increase monetization of edgy content. The second one is that the decoupling of YouTube from Google/Alphabet will start this year, and there'll be a lot more press around it.
Very cool. I'm going to sort of reverse my prediction from 2020. I'm going to say TikTok's going to keep blowing up. And as of yesterday, and again, on Fast Company, I saw that TikTok has now beat up Facebook in the top app worldwide downloads in 2020. So that's huge. They just announced going for 3-minute videos. I see them as a straight shot towards YouTube. I tweeted out a little bit over a week ago when TikTok and YouTube and others started talking about the top creators of the platform of the year. And I was looking at the TikTok list and I was like, this makes me, it looks exactly like YouTube's creator list from 2016, right? Like it's just so similar. So they've definitely embraced the creator ecosystem. So, that's going to be winner for them. They're taking the lessons that YouTube, from YouTube and just amplifying it and embracing it way better than YouTube ever did. So it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. More monetization on TikTok, obviously.
How do you see the 3-minute videos playing out on TikTok? Like, will that be success, or does it go against the kind of ethos of the platform?
I think it's a natural evolution. You can't, the platform can't stay, consistent. Like each of these platforms always have to sort of evolve. As the audience grows, they're going to tap out on the kids, then the adults are going to come in, and they're going to want more and more content. And I think it will just offer the creators different ways to make content. My only sort of hesitation of this is the lack of long tail sort of like content strategy within it, right? It's it's a platform that's very of the moment. If you don't upload, you basically die. But there are people experimenting with educational content. I'm totally not going to predict that that's not, it can't work, right? So to me, it's like, I think it's smart that they uptick the time because people want to create longer videos and attention spans are short. Brands don't, yes, we all talk about it's great that it's small, but the thing is brands actually don't like short attention spans. They want people to sort of watch their content and be exposed to it. There's a reason why YouTube went for longer videos, right? They want, more spaces for ads. 3 minutes means people will accept pre-rolls a little bit more than 20-second videos, right? Nobody wants to see a 30-second ad in front of a 20-second TikTok, right? So that's why they need to go that space.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it that way, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. Don't disagree with that one at all. I'm actually going to skip my next one because I got a feeling that you are going to almost certainly bring it up in a bit. So I'm going to go to my fourth prediction, which is that YouTube specifically will introduce a number of new ways to monetize, again, in an attempt to claw back lost revenues from advertisers pulling their budget. So whether that's kind of in-video shopping ads, like, Carlos is wearing a new pair of sneakers in a video and you can click on those sneakers and buy them directly. I think it was you actually that alerted me to the fact that there were 30-second non-skippable ads back on the platform for the first time in a couple of years. I think maybe even, brand new ways, the potential for people to do their own ad sales becoming more accessible so that everyone can make more money, including YouTube, because of course YouTube makes money when everyone else makes money as well. Opening up opening up themselves as a marketplace for brands to be able to approach creators directly. Just, I think, a number of ways that monetization can be increased on YouTube is going to be their core focus. They've pretty much nailed down all of the kind of technical stuff. YouTube TV's gone a bit quiet. You don't really hear any of the fanfare that was when that first came out. YouTube Kids, as I say, is gone pretty quiet. So I think a lot of their efforts are going to be placed into new ways to monetize the same platform, basically. So that's my prediction: is new monetization methods on YouTube itself.
I think that the whole audio ads of this year is so like, what the hell have you guys been doing for the past 10 years? No, but you got to think about it. Like, one of the number one content that people do watch on YouTube is music videos and listen to music, and everybody does it in the background. And it's like, where's this intelligence that you guys have that, you're able to, so that, to me, that's just mind boggling that it took them this long to figure it out. They definitely need to figure out the shopping ecosystem, because Instagram's just killing it, right? Like, I have a disdain for Facebook products, but it's hard to pass up when I'm looking at an Instagram. I literally this week for the first time caved and bought something off Instagram, and it's like the easiest thing in the world. It feels like, the shopping network. That's what Instagram's going to become. That's nirvana for platforms, right?
Yeah.
So they need to figure that ecosystem up a little bit more. I agree. I mean,
so can I just quickly go back to that? Like, so,
yeah,
because I've never bought anything directly from. I've probably clicked on an ad, but so, like, have Instagram got your credit card details?
No. I basically I purposely avoid putting that information up. But I'm more of a educated edge case, I guess.
Because that's when you make the real money, isn't it? When you've got that's why Amazon is so good, because people's credit card details are already there, so it's so easy to buy. You just remove that friction. So I think that's the point where you really hit nirvana for platforms, is when you've got their credit card details. Facebook have got all these email addresses, but not necessarily, only a tiny amount of people they've got. It's only people really they've got a business manager account that they've probably got their credit card details. So that, I think that's really where the whole game changes, isn't it? When you've got the payment gateway.
Yeah, and then my sort of prediction is something that's sort of weird. We haven't really talked about a little bit. Is CPMs are going up, and they're going up significantly, at least for. And I see a varied number of channels, right? Like, what I've seen happen over the last 6 months is fill rates have skyrocketed. Like, the amount of ads running on your videos have skyrocketed. And I think that's a result of YouTube's cleaning up its ecosystem, focusing much more on quality channels. So there's less channels and then much more companies out there advertising online because there's nowhere else to advertise. Everybody's online.
Yeah, you can't advertise outdoors anymore.
Exactly, right? And you can, but it's just less effective. I think we might actually see a Q1 that's not as crazy drop as it's been in the last little. That's to me my sort of like my ultimate risky prediction is that how our CPMs drop January 1st, right?
Off a cliff, yeah.
Off a cliff. I think that cliff is going to be less this year. I think it's going to be keep going because it's going to like you just think about it. There's like millions more retailers all of a sudden on the platforms, right? And on digital retailers, they're all going to need to keep advertising for at least the next 6 months. That's sort of like this weird sort of like not permanent change, but I do feel like that's going to be sort of like a weird next 6 months to see how that goes. There's also the fact that what we spoke about before, like YouTube monetizing non-partnered channels. Right. To me, that signals that the fill rate was so intense in the premium channels that YouTube was like, oh, we need to figure out a way to increase inventory here.
Which has always been the opposite. It's always been too much. Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, they've always had too much inventory, and now it feels like they all of a sudden don't have enough. So this is definitely a different change. Like again, the channels that I'm working with are seeing revenues that are like double revenue from last year and then 50% less views than last year. So monetization is through the roof, is insane. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Q1. I just feel like it's going to drop. Obviously, it's going to drop. It's just not going to be as crazy a drop as we're used to.
One thing that we didn't mention actually, which is again goes to show that they, one, are looking to claw back revenues and two, like you say, increase inventory. Massive shift is that they move the threshold for mid-roll ads from 10 minutes to 8 minutes.
Yes.
Which was a huge move. Like if you've got a big catalog, that's insane. So if you think about that across their entire platform, reducing the threshold by 20%, that's a huge move. If you think of the tens of millions of videos that then enabled for mid-roll ads.
Yep.
That's a big move. So yeah, we have to nod to the fact that happened this year as well, and very much part of this conversation.
My sort of like last one is a continuation. This week I was part of an online panel with PEX, which is a rights tracking analytics platform that I've been a big fan of. And they did an event with the Music Business Association about educating rights holders on Article 17. What's crazy about Article 17 is that it has the potential to completely disrupt all social platforms, meaning that what will happen is like, how a social platform lives off UGC, right? The only way a platform can grow on the web, a social platform can grow on the web, is by UGC, is letting users upload content. And while that creates a huge opportunity for piracy, and a lot of these platforms play dumb. They stand behind the safe harbor regulations, but that's what's happening. That's the safe harbor regulations are being teared down, meaning that you're going to be responsible from day one for pirated content on your platform. It's going to force every social platform out there, every UGC-based social platform, to have a robust content rights management system. And that's going to stop a lot of things, right? So that's going to make, YouTube Content ID, like, the conversations in the conference was like, yeah, Content ID is great. It was great 10 years ago. It's like they need to up their game. It's not as good as it should be. Yeah. So that means that it's going to be a rock if that stuff starts passing in 2021. And I remember YouTube sort of like sent some notifications this year, saying to get creators to sort of like vote against it or whatever they could do to sort of like push people not to accept it in the UK. This is happening in the EU and the UK. So
they did something very recently in Australia as well. There was a big PR push on social to get Australians to vote against a similar bill.
Yeah, that's going to be, and I don't feel like it's going to stop. It's going to happen. And this will hurt not just YouTube. This will hurt Facebook. This will hurt Instagram. This will hurt, TikTok, unless they get their act together. But it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, my prediction is that it's going to happen. And it's just going to start, it's going to create this snowball effect of just limiting what you can upload. You're just going to be forced to upload or get your rights. Like it's just maturing these platforms, right? It's going to force these platforms to stop living off of somebody else's content, and rights holders are going to have to really pay attention.
Yeah, and then you've also got, I think it's not just video either; it's still image.
Yes.
Audio. So there's so many things now that are going to need to be content ideable, for want of a better word, trackable.
Well, I mean, it's straight up coming from the music industry, right? Which is where the big money is, and these are the ones that are always looking for finding ways to make money off of the content. So, and that will just spill over into video and video very quickly, and then obviously still image. So that's something to be watch out for in 2021. And again, sorry, I feel like I'm monopolizing things, but I just want to finish up with I think YouTube's just going to become much more of a closed ecosystem. The fact that it's no longer playing the way Google used to play, where you have these tools and they all work with each other. Now it's sort of like you can't even put Google Analytics into your YouTube channel anymore. They're limiting ways to comment. I think commenting is going to fall off a cliff, maybe for a good reason, because most of the comments are crap. There's still a lot of spam. They just announced a new sort of like AI system that tells you, that warns you if your comment seems too aggressive or negative. I don't know about you, but like when I use a YouTube app nowadays, it's like, where the hell do I comment?
Yeah.
Where are the comments? I don't see them anymore. They're very hidden, and it takes work to find them, right? Yeah. So commenting engagement is going to it's already diving. I'm seeing a dive across the board. I think it's going to keep going down. But again, it might be a good thing.
Yeah, right? I think my kind of final prediction is there's some overlap, and it's less around copyright law, but more around privacy law. So we've got like the California Privacy Act, I think it's called, and other stuff like that. People getting more and more conscious about their data being tracked, stuff like that. So I think that's going to play a lot more. I think there's going to be a lot of lawsuits this year aimed at the big platforms, YouTube included, from not only people like the FTC, but from kind of class action lawsuits, groups of lobbyists, groups of like parents, groups of social media users that are just going to kind of stand up, make a stand. So I think there'll be lots of lawsuits, and I think we're going to move towards, maybe not this year, but move towards an ecosystem where it's logged in users only, where they know exactly what permissions they've got, they know exactly who you are. You can be, you have to be responsible for your comments. You have to be responsible for your the content that you upload, stuff like that. I think I saw sometime this year I think it was YouTube that were asking for like ID verification before they would like let people keep their accounts and stuff like that. And now if you've got an AdSense account, you need to verify your address a bit better. You need to verify your bank account a bit better. And it's all just becoming a little bit more professional. And I think they'll move away from anyone that they haven't got direct permission from and don't have their details. So that was a bit of a messy one, but generally, generally it's privacy laws becoming more of an issue and lawsuits coming from that.
Touch point in terms of that is that Apple's implementing a lot of limitations when it comes to tracking over the next year, and apps are going to have to disclose what types of tracking they do. So expect that to be a rocky road over the next little while. Tracking limitations. We might actually start seeing less analytics, right? Specifically from iOS devices, which are important devices, right? So even though Android is the number one, everybody knows in the industry that's like the real money is on iOS devices,
because iOS devices are generally in the Western world, I'd say.
Yes, that, and if you have an iOS device, you have money to spend, all that sort of stuff, right? So it's from a marketing perspective, everybody knows this, that and anybody who's built an app knows that they make no money on Android, but they can make a killing off of iOS. So, anyways. But I digress. That was great. I think we're going to officially call this our recap prediction extravaganza, because we end up
extravaganza is a fitting term for it, for sure.
We end up running a bit long, but I think it's great that we've sort of created this little tradition of predictions, and that we widen it out to not just YouTube. It's the ecosystem of what's going on. So I think we've got some good straight up ones, a little bit of a couple of like fluffy ones. When I say fluffy, I just mean fuzzy, that we sort of like, this is the direction we're thinking things are going to go. So thanks a lot, Tom. Before we finish this up, we're going to thank our sponsor, TubeBuddy. That is the ultimate platform for managing your YouTube channels. Once again, I've said this in the past, I recommend TubeBuddy to all my clients, as its tools are necessary nowadays for optimizing your channel. As YouTube keeps pulling stuff back, you're going to need more and more help to optimize for your keywords, for your thumbnails, for your descriptions. Definitely one of the best tools out there to optimize your channel. We have a special offer with our partner.
Yep, you can get an exclusive multi-channel license discount by visiting videoinsiders.fm/TubeBuddy. Thank you, TubeBuddy.
Thank you, TubeBuddy. Tom, it was a rock and roll year.
Yes, it was. A lot of rocks. But yeah, no, I would like to say a thank you to you, Carlos. You've been a good friend and a confidant throughout this whole process and throughout the last few years. The Video Insiders podcast is still going after a number of years. I know most podcasts fizzle out after something like 6 episodes. I don't even know what episode number this is anymore. We're way past.
We're getting close to 50. We're getting close.
So yeah, we're doing really well. I'd like to thank all of our listeners. It still amazes me when people say, "Oh, listen to the Video Insiders podcast." I actually had a message on Instagram the other day, someone telling me they were a listener and a fan. So that's great. We really appreciate your support. If you have enjoyed this episode or any of our episodes this year, please leave us a rating or a review in the podcast app of your choice. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're sharing this with people in the industry, and generally spread the word. Get in touch with us. We'd like to know what we can do better, who you'd like to hear from. Would you like to hear more interviews? If so, who with? What other topics would you like us to talk about? Email us hello@videoinsiders.fm, or you can get us on the socials everywhere at Video Insiders.
Thank you very much, Tom. Have yourself a great and safe holidays, and get yourself vaccinated.
You too, and good luck with the move.
All right, thanks.